Hello, and welcome to another podcast by the Alma Research and Education Center. Today, I'm truly honored to have a great guest with us, the contributor to the MENA Watch in Vienna, Mr. Thomas Eppinger. Pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. It's my honor to be here.
Well, we're going to have a great tour afterwards on the Israeli northern borders later on, but today, actually, we're going to discuss something that we wish to have your own input on, which is the refugees situation in Europe today.
Okay, and what is your question in more detail?
So, in general terms, I mean, today, one of the things that we understand is that there is a complexity among the Syrians in Europe. One of the issues that is being created is that some people, as I understand it, are not really enthusiastic to leave, particularly when we look at the ongoings right now in Syria. And the question is, what will happen? What is the final destination to these people that are currently located in Europe?
Frankly spoken, I think nobody knows what is the final destination, and nobody knows what will happen in general.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we step one step back, we go one step back and start from the beginning.
Sure.
The beginning was in 2015, when Europe was confronted with waves of immigration starting from Syria. Not exactly from Syria, they were Syrian people, but they emigrated from refugee camps around Syria, so Turkey, Lebanon, these kind of things. So nobody came from Aleppo to Berlin.
Right.
Yeah? And in the first wave of immigration in 2015, we saw that most of all people first who arrived were Syrians, and they were quite well off. So better situated, better educated people, middle class, what you would call it, middle to upper class. And most of them did not flee IS or Daesh, they fled from Assad, of course. Mm-hmm. So this was the personal threat. He has bombed their houses, killed their relatives, shot them, murdered them, and they fled the country.
So you're saying the first wave, at least, that we can look at that came to Europe was the more well-to-do, the ones that were, it was easier for them probably or possibly to leave?
Maybe it was easier because they could afford the journey, yeah? Which is not an easy thing to do. And then we ran into a situation after Chancellor Merkel has de facto cancelled the borders. She opened the borders and said, welcome, we can manage that, and then we open our borders, abolished the Schengen Agreement, and then everybody came. So at the beginning, maybe we had 80-90% Syrians, and at the end, they were a minority. So most of all people came from Afghanistan, Pakistan, different countries all over the world. They thrown away their ID cards, so we didn't know who is who, or where do they come from. We did not control what do they have in mind, what do they have in their luggage, what are their intentions. There were just too many, we just let them in. And that was in total, I think, up to now. Now things are more in a much more regular way. And in total, I think we have now about 2 million people since 2015 coming into Europe, and about 1/3 of them being Syrians.
Only a third.
Only a third.
So the rest are like basically what, jumped on the bandwagon? As it was like taking advantage of Europe opening its gates.
The German, I don't know what's the name in English, but there's the institution who administrates all the refugees in Germany. It's called Bundesamt für Migration und Flüchtlinge. So it's an institution for migration and refugees, especially integration. And they have officially admitted that more than 75 to 80% of all people applying for asylum didn't even have any proof of their identity.
Wow.
None. Nothing. So in the meantime, they have controlled a lot, and by dialect, by interrogating them, and so on and so on. But in the first, I don't know, half year or so, They had a multiple choice file to apply for asylum. Where do you come from? Syria, Afghanistan,
Right.
and the helpers of your refugees instructed them how to fill out the file. So, okay, Syrian,
Syria.
political reason, yes.
I see. So
so that was
regardless
the
if
whole
it's
decision.
true
That
or
was
not.
all that was approved. And of course, this led to many problems among the refugees themselves,
Okay.
as well as, of course, with
They're hosting nations.
with the host, with the home society. And this took place all over Europe. And now you see that almost all Europe shifts to the right. So they all have changed their policy except Germany. But Denmark, Sweden, Austria, Italy, they all have changed the policy completely.
Even though in Germany there is also a rise of the right wing
Yes.
in Germany.
And it did rise only for this reason.
All this sort of-
So the AfD, which is partly really represented by people who talk things you wouldn't have believed to hear in the German parliament before. So
Wow.
it's really, well, it's
Well,
really embarrassing. But before 2015, there was a party of economics. It was a party of professors who were just against the euro because they thought the euro is a bad idea. Germany should leave the currency system and we should establish another one. So completely different thing. And then when, as always, when the right extremist wings see that there's an opportunity to get empowered by the people and to feed themselves, they kind of captured the party, and now it's miserable. But that's partly due to the whole issue of migration, of safety, of not to close the borders. It's just about to control the borders. It's not the same. Yeah?
Right.
So to gain back control about who is coming, who is entering the country, and how do we deal with them. This issue was completely neglected by the majority of the parliament. There was no voice. There was no voice speaking for the majority of the people thought about it.
How do you see the integration? Because we mentioned the integration offices and stuff like that. How do you see the integration of the Syrians into Europe? I mean, we're talking also about a different culture. You know, like you can go to Egypt and you can get a cultural shock, and it's the country right next to us. So, how did the countries integrate the people? How did the Syrians, or I mean, there are only third Syrians now from your input, but how did they were able to like adjust into a different society? Or do you see it happening, or is it failing, or is it contributing to the problem possibly?
Both. There's no black and white in this answer. There, I think there's some people, and mainly the better educated people, who are not so much involved into religious issues. They will make their way in Germany, in Sweden, in Austria, wherever they are, and we won't have troubles with them, not at all. But there is a big part of people who came into Europe, as I told you, not only from Syria,
Right.
who brought with them a very traditional understanding of Islam, and it led to a kind of a flashback in society, because we live with a lot of Muslims in Europe, as you know, and for most of our years we didn't have too many problems, at least in Austria and Germany. Speaking about Great Britain, speaking about France, different issue. But Austria, Germany didn't have so much problems. And now parts of the society get dominated by, the very radical Islam, like Muslim Brotherhood and such things. That's the one thing. And the other thing, and they put pressure on the little girls to wear the hijab and so on.
They speak the loudest.
So they speak the loudest, and they themselves prohibit any integration into the society. They will transform the society, that's the aim, but they will not integrate into a society that they despise from the bottom of their heart. So the issue is that this causes a lot of problems to the moderate Islamic community because the social pressure of this group is rather strong. And the second issue is that due to the fact that we do not control who is coming and for what reason, a lot of people have been put together, and the refugees have met in the refugee camps exactly the same people they have flown off.
So they met like also like people they were like fighting against. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what I want to say. So they came and were confronted with the people they tried to escape, and they were confronted with them on German ground, on Austrian ground, or somewhere in Sweden or whatsoever. So it was mainly Germany, Austria, Sweden, where the people went to. That's their aim. And
right.
I think due to social system, and they are part of them. I've spoken to a lot of them at the borders because I live near the border when they came, and I've visited the border several times. And as far as I can say, some know somebody, relatives, a friend, whatsoever, and of course they go into the country where they know anyone.
Right.
It's reasonable and
right.
and totally understandable. But the majority of the people, they have no idea to go to Greece or to Italy or to Spain. They want to Germany. Germany is a sacred country, and a good social welfare it will provide for them. And the same for Austria and Sweden and Denmark. Although mainly it was Germany, Austria, Sweden. And I think according to the population, Austria has taken most of all countries, so per capita, most of all refugees per capita.
Most of the refugees.
But maybe first or second place, I don't know.
So,
but so we have quite absurd and grotesque situations. So, for example, if you there's a famous refugee camp in Greece, and the refugees want to go to the center of Europe. They are landing in Greece, and to go to Europe, they have to cross the border to Macedonia. I don't know how you pronounce it in English.
Macedonia.
Macedonia. Okay, and they cross the border to Macedonia. And so they are in the European Union, and they are demonstrating, they are fighting, they are doing everything they can to flee from the European Union to get into the European Union again after they pass through Macedonia. So it's kind of absurd. It's grotesque.
You're looking for a specific spot. Is that what you're saying? That you're being.
So nobody is after them in Greece. So nobody is hunted. They are safe.
Right, but they're possibly they're looking for.
They have no future there. They don't take care for them. There's a poor country, and they don't even. Some people have to. I was told, I don't know it by first hand, but by second hand experience, that people in Greece have to wait up to 2 years to even get the decision where they will be accepted as for asylum or not.
For asylum, so it's like
it's horrible, of course.
So the people that are coming, some of them are realizing that it's not going to be the best of places. So
exactly.
I'm going to choose one of the best options. Is that what you're saying? So after reaching in
Germany.
So after reaching Europe, it's not about staying alive. It's about having the place with the best opportunities, possibly, or the best welfare that can be provided.
And you would make the same choice,
probably.
I suppose.
It's just a curious situation it's a curious topic to discuss for sure. But he also mentioned that the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood was or still is working hard on basically influence in the rest of the refugee society in Europe and trying to
different groups. It's Muslim Brotherhood, but it's also
among others for sure.
Among others, and the main representations of Muslims of Muslim institution in Austria and Germany are financed and controlled by the Erdogan's regime. So they are from Turkey, directly funded, and of course, they take care of their new brothers and sisters, and but to give you an example of what we're talking about, so the whole institution of what I'm talking about is ATIP or TTIP, as it's called in Germany. Uh, their leaders are elected by a maximum of 30,000 people, not more.
Mm-hmm.
We have 500,000 Muslims in Austria alone. So the vast majority of Muslims are not represented at all.
Mm-hmm.
They just pretend to speak for the whole community, but they do not at all. They do for a very
Specific
interpretation of Islam, and a very, very orthodox, very conservative, and I would say very aggressive form of.
Is that creating a backlash within the,
I think so.
Among Austrian citizens and German citizens?
You see it in the elections. The right-wing parties all over Europe, with the exception of Spain, win.
Mm-hmm.
Each country has changed its policy with the refugees. So Denmark has practically closed its borders. Sweden has practically closed its borders. Austria does its best to close its borders. It's only Germany who still accepts, I think they will accept about 200,000 people per year, but which is still a lot, because it's a
Right. Still is.
right, a medium-sized town, growing population every year. But besides, Italy is strictly against refugee. The Eastern European countries, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Slovenia, whatsoever, they don't take refugees at all. They refuse it. They would, but they do not take Muslim refugees, because they say they do not fit to our society. And well, of course, there's a backlash.
Let's talk about the last sentence that you said, is the fact that they don't fit our society. Now, this is something that, if we want to look at in general terms, not only the Syrian refugees, we try to understand the reason. One of the things that we tried, for instance, in our research center to understand, is the reason why there was such a high number of people from Europe, Muslims from Europe, coming in the first place to Syria, and to recruit, particularly in ISIS. And you can sit down and wonder why would somebody leave? I would say a much more luxurious life. I don't know if that's the correct term, but still, it's not Syria. It's not a war zone, and then you're choosing to go to that war zone, and we try to understand why does that happen in the first place. We obviously have the new immigration now, but of course it bases off earlier immigration into Europe. Do you see the failure in integration into Europe from the waves before the Arab Spring? So that have settled in Europe. I mean, the way we looked at it is there are both sides into this equation. I mean, the Muslim societies haven't been able to integrate, or, like you say, accommodate to the countries that are hosting them, and I'm not sure how much it was effectively supported by the countries, or is there enough foundations that try to balance the cultures that are so different into, basically understanding the people that we're bringing in? Is that one of the motives that you see has led to some people to decide to leave into Syria?
Frankly spoken, I don't have an answer on this question, because there are so many reasons for everything you're talking about, and so many different reasons. So one thing is for sure. Well, what I can say for sure is that there are a lot of efforts, especially in Germany and Austria, which I know best, for integrating the foreigners. That's the one thing. And the other thing is that we have been confronted with immigrants before, ever since, and there is no such thing like caring for integration with any other group except the Muslims. So
it's an interesting position as well.
No need to undertake special efforts to integrate, let's say, people from South Asia. They just come, they learn, they go to school, they attend university, and in the second generation, least in the third generation, they are in general above the home society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? But not so with a very conservative Muslim society.
Which is a very
It's
peculiar.
difficult. It's very peculiar, and it's very difficult to get them integrated because now the communities are such big that you can come to Vienna, to Berlin, to Paris, to Stockholm, to London as a Muslim, and you do not need to talk to any non-Muslim, and you can care for everything in your life because the community is so big. So there is no exchange between the people.
I see.
The
Okay.
Muslims stick together. They speak the same language. They listen to. They watch Al Jazeera on television or Turkish television.
So
or
it's something
whatever.
that we're
And
really.
they're close societies. They do. There's no exchange. There are no intermarriage things, and if they are, it's only men married women. But it's completely forbidden to have any relationship for the girls with Germans or Austrians. So it's completely one way. You understand?
I mean,
So
yeah,
it's
we
very
see that
difficult.
always in refugee statuses where
see?
people stick in the same neighborhoods. I mean, every wave.
I've met a guy, a very nice guy here in Jerusalem. He's grown up in East Jerusalem, for example, and it's quite the same story. He told me, I've grown up in Jerusalem. The first Jew I met, he told me, I was at the age of 23. And we became friends, and this was in the United States, not in Jerusalem.
Not in Jerusalem.
And this, okay, then he started to think, why is it like that? And he changed his mind. But that's quite the same experience that we have in Europe.
So we're looking at the personal passion to like basically talk to the other side, because otherwise, if you don't make the effort yourself, it's not going to happen from the outside sources. You're saying,
And it's difficult because, for example, take the role of the women. If you don't get the women to work, if you don't get the women to interact, the men are working, or not, but most of them are working. But the women they stick together or sitting at home. They do not interact with the majority of the society. And how can integration happen when you don't learn the language, when you don't interact with the people?
and they're the ones who are raising the kids as well, so like they can have the biggest impact.
Yes. It's school. It's about kids. It's about education. So if we start with a very young generation, we do a good job. But the people you have talking about lived under those circumstances that I tried to describe a little bit for years. And the first generation of immigrants in the midst of the last century, they were happy with being in France, in Germany, in Austria. We hadn't had any problems at all because they experienced a better life. They experienced, okay, I'm better off here than I was before. But the second generation, the third generation, they didn't interact, they didn't make it, they didn't make career. And
That's interesting because the first generation has done it. So how come the second generation, pushes back? It's just like a
that's
interesting.
the biggest question on the whole issue. And everybody puts this question. And I think there is no one answer. But one answer, among others, is that the society, the Islamic communities itself, first of all, doesn't put as much emphasis on education as, let's say, the Jewish society, for example. Second, or the Asian people, it's all about education. They do not.
Which I think it's odd because, not as a Muslim issue, but as an Arab thing. And, we're talking about, except for people that are coming from Pakistan and Afghanistan, they're not Arab, but within the Arabic society in particular, like education is like huge, and it includes reputation, and it's something that people are hugely like, aspire to get. So I'm just curious how that, changes when you're in Europe. It's just.
I think a lot of them, it's a question of identity, because you
heard the spot right there.
Okay, but they're questioning in Europe too, because
Right.
they don't feel like a German. They feel treated as a second-class people, but they are not second-class people because their father is a Turkish man. They are second-class people because they didn't make it in the society. You understand what I mean?
I do understand. Let's take this.
But they feel they reference to their heritage and, and they find their part of them might find their identity in ISIS, so which gives them respect, love,
creating a Muslim
community,
nation, you feel
Muslim
like
nation,
you're
you're part of a bigger thing.
You're
Yeah.
not, one
Important.
part of the society that is not the major. I don't know if you've seen the Shamima interview, the British girl who tried to come back to England.
I didn't watch it.
Well, she's
I've read about it.
right. So she's about 19, and she left to ISIS in about 14. And when they interviewed her in one of the refugee camps, after the last enclaves of ISIS were defeated, she was interviewed, and I think one of the curious statements that she made, and it's talking exactly about what you're saying right now, is the fact that she said, "I regret what happened, but I don't regret leaving Britain itself." With everything that happened, she doesn't regret leaving Britain because the way that she described it is the fact that she was looking for that life, being a Muslim in a Muslim nation where you can feel a belonging. And maybe this is and you talk about a person with a perfect accent, so it's not like, there's something missing in the equation for her to feel a complete British, I guess. And this is something that we need to figure out more.
By the way, I've heard the same sentence quite a lot of times from Arab Israelis.
We're going to open a different discussion
but
now.
It's a different story. No, but you see,
I guess there it's more of a political identity for sure, but it's also something that comes up for sure.
The problems are not, they're completely different, of course, but they show up in a quite a similar way.
Absolutely. Identity crisis exists in different forms, but definitely something that we can see there. And
so what will happen is bad for all involved parties. It's bad for the majority of the people who does not understand why it should pay for so many people who rape, of which many of them rape their daughters, they kill. There's every week is some incident by a young man who is not
violence.
Violence. So we know the statistics of violent crimes are increasing. All those things, and this leads to a backlash into how you communicate and how you respect other people as a general. You understand what I mean?
Absolutely.
So the people who will suffer the most of all this are the one who try to integrate themselves because they pay the price for all the others who
don't want to come in and be part of the society.
And may I make one point?
Please.
Because before I talked about let's go back to the beginning, but that was not the beginning. The beginning, in fact, was the totally fail of Europe to understand that it has to interact in Syria. And it had to, make a no-fly zone over certain areas, that has to finance the refugee camps around Syria and so on. So on the contrary, they have cut the means they spent the years before for the UN refugee.
So you're saying there was no direct and consistent action that was
not at all
set by the European
Union. And we could have managed the whole thing to a fraction of the cost and with causing a fraction of the problems when we first should have taken our responsibility to keep the people safe who were fleeing from Assad, and then to feed those who have already fled. So this would, I think for one person we pay in Austria and Germany, you can pay 50 persons in Lebanon. But we did not do it, and we pay a high price for it.
And right now we're seeing the outcomes of it. And what are you saying is going to be the next step at least. Then the next one, we're not looking at the final destination this time, but like
I don't know.
we maybe wrap it up with what's the next step for that, or maybe what Europe should do next about there's so many people that you're
What
saying that
Europe
don't want to
should-
leave,
No,
or
what Europe should do
okay.
is for sure what they will not do. Because so they never did in the past, and they don't do it now.
In a highway.
We should stop funding terrorism. We should stop funding regimes that fund terrorists like Iran. We should stick to our allies like Israel, United States, and so on, who share our values, who share our interests. And all of this will not happen. So, frankly spoken, I do not dare to make any projections how Europe should act, because they will not, and so I also don't know how they will act.
They will act. Well, I mean, this was wonderful. It was truly a pleasure having you here. It was a great insight on the situation in Europe for today among refugees, and well, third of them are Syrian refugees from what you're saying, and yeah, we only look for safety, particularly in Europe today, for you and the rest of Europeans, and we appreciate you so much, and your contribution to us is highly appreciated. And thank you everyone who listened to us today at another podcast by the Alma Center.
So goodbye to everyone.
And we'll
Thank you.
see you again.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.